Tokozani, Magu, Namaste, Selbona, I see you and recognize the divine in you, in me, in all of us. I am Gogo Thule Gani. I'm a Sangoma medicine woman, priestess, seer, diviner, time traveler, and all of the great things that my ancestors have created me to be. I am devoted to the ancient ways of the ones before me who were healers, wisdom keepers, who understood the stars, the warriors, and I am a keeper of the wisdom of the elements of nature. This audio series, Ancestral Dreams, Omens, and Prophecies, is a gateway or a sacred space to see our dreams as teachers and helpers for those on a spiritual journey by demystifying the ancestral realm, our subconscious, and to build bridges between our individual dreams and to share what fuels and inspires my work as an ancestral healer. Thank you for joining the journey. Tokozani, welcome back to the sacred space. Really excited about this episode. Those of you who have been following me for a while know that I have a sacred love affair with sound, with music, with vibration, and chants, and songs, and sacred tones and languages. And basically, for today's episode, I'm going to try my best to share the perspective of sound healing, to share the portal of sound into the ancestral realm, into the dream realm, into the vision realm, and the multi-dimensions that exist. Hopefully from a perspective that you may not have heard me speak about before, or in a different way. And I'm going to allow today's guest to be the navigation and the map that we follow, because he has a very beautiful and profound perspective, and I loved everything that he had to say, and I trust that you will love it too, or at least take something away from it. So today I'll be sharing some snippets from our guest, and also just some perspectives about sound and what it means to us in our minds, in our bodies, and in our spirits. I think that regardless of what type of life or path that you live, that we all have a unique or simple relationship with music and with sound. We have memories and experiences that we relate to music. And a lot of the experiences, the spiritual experiences that I've had, were deeply intertwined with sound. The sound of the drum, the sounds and the musics that we hear in our dreams, the healing that has happened through sound has been consistent and profound on my journey. And so I have a lot of reverence and admiration for it. And it's something that continually surprises me and fulfills me on this journey. So, yeah, let's get into it. One of the most grounded parts of my initiation and rites of passage was to invoke my role as a keeper of songs. So a part of our process is learning the sounds and the songs of the ancestors, learning the songs that help us invoke the ancestors, learning the songs that help us continue the oral traditions and the teachings of our lineages. And so basically I had to sing a lot, a lot more than I have ever sung in my life, especially coming from a Catholic background where you barely had to sing if you really wanted to, and the songs were just kind of, sometimes they were a little dry from my perspective, right? But anyways, having to sing so many songs and learn them in a different language was very interesting. And one of the things that I found very beautiful because it was the first time for me. I know that other people have experienced this in other spaces, whether it be in church spaces or healing circles and ceremonies and things of that nature. But exploring sound through my initiation allowed me the experience of starting to sing a song in my own voice, not really knowing what it was supposed to do, just singing and singing and singing until you get to a point where something in your energy field starts to rise, or something in your energy field starts to emerge. And you start to feel like the song is carrying you to another place, or carrying you to emotions that you didn't even have at the beginning of the song or before the moment. And through song, starting to feel the feelings and the emotions of ancestors or other beings and other people, singing a song and starting to feel certain sensations in your body like turn on. One way of interpreting my experience is that I say that I feel like certain lights are being turned on in my brain or in my chakras when I've experienced certain rituals and ceremonies. And, one of the things that when I did the podcast interview with Assad from the Black Conscious podcast, he was one of the first interviewers that ever asked me the question, what was the most difficult thing about your ancestral journey or your initiation? Like, what was very difficult for you? And I remember expressing like maybe 2 to 3 things, but I barely really went into the most difficult thing for me. And it's difficult for many people because one of the things that an ancestral initiation does is that it helps you awaken to the energy of your ancestors, right? You learn how to call upon them and invoke them a certain way. And one of the hardest things for any initiator or teacher or Baba or Gobela to do is to help you awaken that energy. And so for some people, this can be a very long process. For some people, it happens right away. We're all different, right? And so this was the thing that was just so hard for me. And I began to understand through dreams and through other things why it was that for me in terms of my soul stories and what's in my Akashic records. And maybe we'll share that another time. But this was hard for me to invoke the energy of my ancestors. And the first time that I truly felt the invocation of my elevated ancestors was through a song. I was listening to this song and it created this emergence and this breaking openness. And I felt the energy of my ancestors in the most profound way for the first time. Yes. And they came and they did things and they expressed certain things that made me feel whole. Makhosi. Made me feel more alive than I've ever felt. And that is the power of sound to me. Sound has helped me remember and recognize and activate my ancestors. And it's a feeling that I feel like we all really need. Yeah, boo. When I think about every time I or you and we have expressed feeling disconnected, every time we even feel bored about life, when it starts to feel like every day is the same thing, or like a certain aliveness that we want to feel. That missing, something missing, it felt fulfilled through sound for me. And what gets me through life sometimes is allowing myself to tap into that space. And it feels like a like a recharging of a battery that helps me and us walk in this realm, in this 3D realm, in this world, more activated, or more whole, or more like literally the roots. We're not so disconnected from the roots below us, or the energies above us, and the frequencies that connect to us through our heart, and on many levels. And so I think that's the best way that I can say or express what sound means to me. For me, sound means connecting with something deeper, connecting with something divine. And I also want to share just a few ways in which sound comes up in dreams, or comes up in terms of the ancestral realm, and what we kind of can experience day to day. So I think I'm just going to touch on one way that our subconscious is connected to song and sound, in one way that I was shown in the dream time, just very bluntly, this is what dreams are made of. But ultimately, well, right now, and for the past, for a little while now in spiritual communities, there is, I guess, more modern practices is this concept of binaural beats. And these are created sonic sounds that vibrate at a certain frequency that that is correlated with levels of healing that we can experience in our energy field. And so there are these binaural beats that are available, and people can listen to them, meditate to them, fall asleep to them, in order to grow and experience the power of sound. And it's something that I'm into it, but I don't, gravitate towards very often. There's so many other sounds that have resonated with me, and that I have found on this journey. So what I did experience, though, was, I'm always listening to music. I'm always listening to chants and mantras and things of that nature. And so one night I was listening to a sound that I love so much. It's a ceremonial sound. So I was listening to it one night, fell asleep, and I had one of those dreams where you experience a dream within the dream. I was sleeping, I woke up, but I was still dreaming, and then I woke up again in this third dimensional realm that you are listening to this podcast from. So I go into the dream realm, and the first dream that I have is that I see myself doing this spiritual activity. Now, mind you, this is something that I have been asking the ancestors about for a long time. I've just been like, ancestors, show me this, ancestors, teach me this, ancestors. It's just like this one topic that I have been so focused on, that I had been a few years ago, so focused on from them. And then finally, I'm in this dream where I'm seeing myself doing this activity, and I'm feeling them guide me and explain things that I have been waiting to hear and understand from them. And then in the dream, I wake up and I go to my spiritual sister, and I start to tell her in the dream about the dream that I just had, and what it meant, and just all this feedback, but I'm still dreaming. And this is something that I haven't really heard talked about a lot, but it may be something that I have just created into my subconscious experience. But it is very common for me to wake up in a dream and tell somebody about it, but I'm still dreaming. And so one of the things that I expressed to her in the dream was that the dream that I just had, this connection with the ancestors that I just made, was all because of the song that I fell asleep to that night. Yibble. It was something about that particular song and the way that it went into my brain waves and rewired things and connected me directly, Makhosi, with the ancestral realms. Tokoza. And so I felt like it was a very just direct way to say how songs interact with us on a physical level, on a spiritual level, and in the dream time. And so I want to get into our guest. I want to introduce him to you, and I want to continue this conversation from his perspective. So sometimes I have a way of randomly scrolling through social media and finding some jewels, finding some really beautiful people who are doing amazing things, creating amazing things, sharing things that are so beautiful. And so a little while ago, I was scrolling through Instagram and I came across Nkosenathi Koela. And he goes by his artist name as well, which is the handle in the title, which is Mntana Wexhwele. So I was scrolling through Instagram and Nkosenathi comes up. His music, there's a video of him playing a really beautiful indigenous instrument, and the sounds that are coming through him are so beautiful. And I actually shared it on my page. And somewhere down the loophole that I went down, I found his music on SoundCloud. And I remember sitting that day and just listening to everything that he made on there, and like late into the night, and to the point where, you know, I went into the dream realm and traveled and floated to spaces. And so I reached out to him because I appreciate, not only because I appreciate his music, but he is an indigenous sound healer. And the way that he describes his art is that he is a receiver of sound through the multiple indigenous instruments that he has had the honor of getting to know. He manifests sonic dreams that vibrate through him by way of the ancient ones that guide. To hear his sound is to hear the ancients, stories of pain, loss, love, and hope, to journey into the unimagined and the reimagined. Hear the vibrations that heal, that draw the root of the wound to the surface and allow the listener and practitioner to together see and clean as they will. A great and necessary elixir for all of Africa today. That is his music right there. That's exactly how I felt. And Nkosenathi is in South Africa, in the Cape Town area. And so I asked him some questions, and we had a really beautiful sharing and back and forth that I want to bring you in on today. To share a little bit about what it is that he does and how he kind of got started on this healing path. And this is what he shared with us.
So, I'm also being initiated into the divination path, unpacking the many ways in which divination occurs and exists on the continent, and not just through initiation rites, but the multiplicity and, I guess, the plurality in which divination and the call of healing and the call of being light and transmitting life into the world in the concept of the continent, in the African continent, and how that, and its children, and how that manifests. So, for example, some people think that there's just like, they'll be like, oh, we have Izangoma and Nesangoma, and Sangomas are people who heal by, you know, telling you what's wrong with you without knowing, and the ones who dance and sing, and they go through initiation rites like this. But that is only one of the parts of divination that occurs. There are many words and how can I say? There are many words and ancient. I use ancient in the sense of time past, but also future time, and present time. There are many ancient technologies, indigenous technologies, and that share that, these are the many ways in which we divine. These are the many ways in which the gifts occur. All the other things are just indicators of the same source. And each person then gets given their set of gifts from the Almighty, but also from the Almighty's messages and those who have passed, being our ancestors, the guardian angels that exist to transmit that, that eternal and everlasting message. So that could be through sound, movement, dance. And my interest is unpacking that here with the scriptures and the dialects and the codes and the omens and the dreams that exist and the vibrations that exist before now. So, what did they say about these people before? Because today we know Isangoma because people have minimized the scope of the indigenous imagination and captured and colonized the indigenous imagination for all of us. Because when they captured our imagination, they captured all of our being, sensory being, non-sensory being, imaginative being, because they took our spirit, as the great Sanusi Credo Mutwa says, they took the spirit of the Bantu, that's what happened. Everything else follows when you destroy that entity, that divinity. And so I was looking back, and sound was the encoded message, vibration was the encoded message that transmitted, that allowed me to access that memory, that source and that well of memory that will remind everyone, that reminded me, but said, hey, this is what will remind everyone, because the sound is the essence of the universe. Sound is almost, it's not almost, but it's in everything. The vibration and sound. When something vibrates, it emits sound. If it vibrates at a high enough frequency, it emits light and heat. And so the sound is tangible and intangible, just like dreams are tangible and intangible, and what we see. So it's beautiful for myself when I work in that space of unpacking what indigenous sound and healing looks like. And as a healer who heals through sound, as an initiate who's been initiated by sound, and the ancestors to work with the voice of sound and the voices of sound and the healing of vibration. Because plants have a vibrational frequency. Everything that has life has a vibrational frequency. And so I'm trying to remember what my ancestors have already known, that they've encoded in my DNA and in my spirit, and encoded in everyone's DNA. And I'm unrooting that through that journey. So that's what my life is right now. So obviously I've been unpacking the more standard rites, but then I've also been in the space of dreams, because dreams are the foundation of divination as much as the Almighty and the guardians are. They're the foundational message that is the very interpersonal connectivity that we have to the divine. So and those vibrations, the dream is just for me another vibration. It's just another manifestation of the same. It's the spiritual vibration now becoming tangible, and then painting in our minds, or feelings of vibrations. And we have words for this. Well, in the Southern African Nguni and Bantu languages, which is kind of my focus. So yeah, man, I'm interested in finding these words and the omens and what these sounds do and what they remind us of. And yeah, man, so that's kind of where I'm at in terms of just a brief explanation of what I do. So yeah, so I facilitate and try to share this information and these technologies with people. As I learn, I try to share so that people have the skills and the tools to empower themselves. And my focus is on just teaching people as much about it, so we can, as you say, demystify things and share people common knowledge, just like people know very basic Western things, like idiomatic expressions. Like people will know, like, for example, I was thinking of birds and the feather fly in the same flock or something like that, or tit for tat, butter for fat. All those But those things, when you unpack their roots, they come from somewhere. They mean things. They have an etymology, epistemology. They have a context in which they arise from. And so to know things like that for us, especially in the dreamscape, I spent a lot of time unpacking my dreams and unpacking other people's dreams and looking for the commonality and the thread of the symbolic codes of the lion, the tiger, water, air, plants, leaves, sound, song, snakes, particularly snakes, because of their very interesting the dichotomy in which they exist in the Western world and in our world. That people there's just that complication, and just to try to decolonize the African spiritual space, but not decolonize more than just walk in it and then uncode it, and decode it away from the Western code, because people have written extensive things about it, but the messages are there for us in our drums, in our instruments. These technologies are the ancient memory of our people. They are our writing. They are what we've written and what we will write. And I really want to share that these are archaeological tools in which we've encoded our spirit, and they're still present. And I've also spent a lot of time learning from different indigenous masters and sages, people who know, and sharing the concept of disciple and sage and knowers amongst the African epistemological space, so that we can re-own and recenter ourselves in our space of knowing, that we know. These are our people who know, when we go to them. And that comes with the demystification of the healer, because the healer is not just someone who works in the spiritual realm. The healer is the midwife. The healer is the grandfather. The grandmother is the child. The healer is all these things. That same healer is the one who goes and fetches water, who knows what's the good living water, where the bad water is. The astronomer, the keeper of ancient knowledge, the orator, the musician, the player, the practitioner. The healer occupies that plurality of space, just like people are both parents and academics, or whatever the case may be. And to say that we can live in this indigeneity, and we can exist and thrive and be, and we can build community through it, and build commerce and architecture and structure and discipline and mythology and all these things that already existed before that we have, but re-own them and recreate them, because our breath is their breath. It's not a different breath. So what we say and what we do, if we're doing it with the same source of guidedness and light, is the same source as then. So no book will tell us that this isn't African or this isn't indigenous. No Western ethnographer or scholarship will tell us otherwise, because then we will have our own space to create and be ourselves. Gamako.
Magu Buti, thank you for those words. I think a running theme on this podcast is getting very deep very, very quickly. I loved so many things about what he shared about his journey and the things that he is unpacking and discovering. One thing that he touched on that has been in my mind for many years is, he went right away into, what is a Sangoma? Yebu, Sangoma. This questioning around what is this all about? And it's a question that we all ask, whether you train to be a guru or a babalao or a doctor or a secretary. Even in that training, you see that there's still more to discover about what this means. I loved how he spoke about the fact that there's many, many indigenous technologies. There's many, many, many ways in which our gifts are occurring. And even how dreams can be the foundation of divination, and even the concept of being initiated by sound. But what really stood out to me is just in his particular wording about how our imagination can be captured, our imagination can be limited, and how important on this journey or significant on this journey it is to decolonize, to unpack, to rewrite the stories of our imagination and in our relationship with our imagination. I love it, I love it, I love it. So next, based on Nkosenathi's feedback, I asked him, in these spaces of sound, what has he discovered that was significant? What did he see about sound, or what did he divine about sound? And this is what he had to say.
In regards to sound and its many capabilities, I would say that what I believe to be the most beautiful thing about indigenous sound and vibration is that its ability to wash and to cleanse away past traumas, current traumas, to bring closer healing potentials that are innate in the body, to essentially wash the body. Because sound for me is something that washes the subtle self, and then because it washes the subtle self, it then has beneficial and very outward signs to say that it's doing its work. So for me, that's the most beautiful thing. It's there to break curses, to reconfigure, reconstruct, and recondition the body into a vibration of love and light. And in my experience, that has been the most beneficial part, and that comes in different things because people are carrying different things. So in a space in which I find myself, I meditate through that sound, and I allow myself to channel whatever frequency and message that needs to be sent, and then I go forth washing sonically with the sonic waters and vibration, washing the space and exercising things that aren't meant to be there, and which is important for me to come there. Why it's important for me to be clean when I'm there, but afterwards to also undergo purification, because I when I then work, I understand that whatever is attached onto someone is then latching off, and it'll look for the next thing to attach to if it's not completely exercised, and that may be me because I'm the one who's vibrating at that time. And so to watch different people's different expressions, some people cry, some people wail, some sob, some people will just sit still, some people will open their arms, and some people will tell you what they saw, what they felt, what they experienced. Some people will have their ancestors come, or episodes of something happening, and so what I'm trying to get at is to acknowledge that just like everything sings and everything moves, they all have different tones, but for me they all come from the same source. So everything is speaking, as you say, the plants with the icaros, etc. This is the song of life. This is the song of the Almighty's voice in everything. And so, and the messages of the Almighty, but they're also realizing that there are other messages and of darkness as well, and other forces that also sing, and it's to tread that line carefully and to tread it slowly with knowledge of self and knowledge of what one's doing, because it's also dangerous. I always tell people that it's dangerous to go into things with not knowing what you call and what something might appear, and you won't be able to handle it. And so I would say these are for me, the biggest strength of sound. Some of the things that I've seen I've seen many things and heard many things, but I've also seen nothing and heard nothing. I've heard the song of plants. I've heard the song of the rain, the song of the universe. I've received different things and seen different things, but for me, those are all just markers. They don't make the experience those things don't make it any better than just sitting still and feeling the warmth of the Almighty and God, and feeling the comfort of your ancestor and you walking your path. That is for me the greatest gift sound can do, is to make you stronger in yourself and you connected to, and allow for a gateway for you to channel where you need to be. Visions and other things, yes, do occur, and I've experienced them, but I think for me that's that moment of pure love and joy and security and safety and understanding, and also letting go, and also being held by that loving presence, for me is, I guess, the most beautiful thing. And for me, that's where the healing is, the most potent healing within, is in the safe space that sound creates, that vulnerable safe space, but also safe in the sense that it's vulnerable but it's secure. It's got the angels around it. It's got the ancestors standing around it, and they're fighting off on our behalf. And I say that when I play, and the vision, the images that keep coming to my mind is whenever I play an instrument, I always see and feel the embodiment of one of my ancestors or guardian angels, and I see them come out, and I feel them fight the darkness that exists, and I feel them clean and wash and do the work. And you feel the space heat up. You can feel the atoms, move. You can feel them vibrate, and you can feel the space being filled with heat and light, as I said before, that process of sound, vibration, heat, light, warmth. And so this is the beauty, and this is what I love and want to tap into, and I continuously learn that. And sometimes I fall astray, and I need to remind myself, or be reminded, be guided all the time. And in terms of the similarities, indeed, we have similarities with sounds and vibrations that have particular relationship with the natural world. And those are then used to do different works. But what I've understood is that here there are those that are passed down, but there are also those that people receive in their sleep that have different potentials, songs that you get from your ancestors in particular times that enable you to do particular things. There are songs that are passed down amongst diviners here that have narratives that shape the space. Some will call on rain, some will clear the sky, when it's thundering. Some will facilitate in the healing processes that it's happening there. And for myself, maybe for someone else it's different. For myself, it's been particularly through just that channel of vibration. That's been my experience, and witnessing the centrality of geometry within indigenous sound, whether people call them mandalas or people understand, the ancient circles and that relationship. But I always tell people indigenous sound works on the premise of the circle. The circle must be complete when you play, and that's why sometimes something is repetitive and people say, oh, it's trance-like, but it's that repetition closes that circle and allows that portal to be opened. And that's the beauty for me. It works with those the circles, and then the circle is also the triangle, and the circle is also pi. So it works with all these geometric shapes, which for me then align the body, align the spine, align the chakras, align the molecules, and sound bath and wash and purify the body.
Tokozani. Woo! Listening to that brought so many perspectives in my mind. But ultimately, I just felt like listening to Nkosenathi was just like feeling like we're living in parallel universes, and I could just see similarities in the things that I've experienced. using sound not only for self-healing but in holding space for others. And as he was speaking about sound and the plants having songs, I told Nkosenathi that, I gravitate a lot towards the indigenous traditions of Central and South America for a number of different reasons. Well, mostly because it reminds me a lot of the ways of the ancestors in Africa. And but it was the first tradition where I heard it blatantly expressed and talked about in a number of different ways about how the plants have songs. Yes. And in some regions, they talk about song as an ikaro. An ikaro is a sound that is usually revealed to the shamans and to the people through the plants. And so in some areas, you have healers who are not only able to heal with the plant, right? But because they know the song of that plant, even without the presence of that plant, they can use the song to bring about similar healing, similar healing benefits, just using the song instead of just the plant, and using the plant and the song together. You get what I'm going here. But I felt really connected to that because some of the sacred plants that I have experienced would not necessarily specifically teach me their song. I'm not gonna call myself that, but through the plants and the connection with sound, having so many revelations and so many songs and sounds come through. And one of the other things that this sharing brought up to my mind is, we're in America, and especially for Black people, one of the things that and people coming from the church, one of the ways that they initially experienced sound was through this concept of speaking in tongues. And I'm not going to go too much into that right now, but I just shared those two perspectives about the plants and the songs, and how people over here are identifying some of these experiences in different ways, such as speaking in tongues. And I just wanted to hear what he had to say.
Yeah, I think it's a very beautiful, I would say, portal where one is conversing about the speaking or encountering new sounds, new strokes, new vibrations, or just remembering. Remember, as I had mentioned, that sound is being, a living memory. It's an archive, if you will. A lot of my work deals with that, as it being a repository of knowledge, of healing knowledge, of living knowledge, of practical, just joy knowledge, love knowledge, of guiding knowledge, of mathematical principle, and um, a repository of just information. I try to share to people to understand sound in its many forms. How people understand water. People understand water as liquid, gas, solid, for example, in those forms, and then they explain that, and they explain why it's so unique, and water holds life, let's etc etc etc, and how its unique forms are so unique to this plain earth, and how it's because of those forms it can sustain life in different ways. uh, and how water has memory and knowledge, and it remembers things, etc. And sound is the same. Vibrations are the same, and it's just, for me, these are just energy transfers. The energy being not just sound. As it's like, if you sing, those vibrations just transfer. They don't destroy, but they transfer, and they reverberate throughout the annals. For me, the history annals. It's just something that continues
and continues. And we are feeling the song and the sound strokes and the meditations from back then as much as ours are sending into the future and the present, and perhaps into the past, breaking some of the concepts of linear time when you guess getting into the conversation of dreamings, but that for another time. But yeah, so for me, I've encountered I always receive sounds. There's the Adungu harp that I received. How to tune and to play is something I received. I wasn't taught. I just received song by song over a period of time. I built the instrument, went on a journey to kind of find myself, which was the strings of this album, Inkaba, which is about looking for the umbilical cord to the earth and to oneself, and understanding what that means, that symbolic connection between here, because Inkaba is something it symbolizes your connection to your home and your ancestry, and it gives you a place amongst the living and the spiritual space. And so that sound was doing that, and I encountered on the journey of, I guess, and the stories accompanied to that, sounds just kept coming. It's just sounds just kept coming, and I understand everything that I do as receiving. It's me receiving and remembering. um, and I wouldn't I guess the word would be, some instances would be talking in tongues, but I've encountered that when I play a session and I just allow the vibrations to move. But I wouldn't describe it as talking in tongues. Perhaps it's just an English thing, perhaps it's just a translation thing, which is not necessarily important. But the way I view it, perhaps, is to say that uh, sound is is a portal, as I was explaining, a sound portal, and all we are in the different languages that we speak connect to the higher source of 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 the divine frequency and God's frequency and the Almighty's frequency and sounds, in which all angelic bodies and ancestry lie. They also communicate those sound messages, and we receive them in different ways. So for me, it's connected to remembering. It is just a process of remembering. For people in the diaspora, for me, when I journey, and my interest in connecting the diaspora and all of us is because we all have different pieces of the whole um, sound and vibration and healing memory of the continent, and we're all integral parts in that memory, in reinstilling that nation and that vibration, for us to connect to some of the oldest frequencies, is for us to keep linking. Because as you say, you would understand, imagine when you sing something, and I've encountered this for myself, but I've also encountered in sessions that I hold, um, uh, in assisting people in journeying to find, their own connection to, from sound and vibration, to their ancestry and to their healing, is to say that I watch people remember things and remember um, actions that they did. For example, in Brazil, I was holding a session, and uh, it was about vomiting and expelling, sounds and vibrations and things that you hold, and expelling them through sound. And one of the participants was saying how she remembers um, being in a home and feeling like there was an evil presence, and all of a sudden something took over and started commanding in a language that she didn't understand. But in that moment, when I was working, we were working together, she remembered that, and she started to feel, not necessarily know, but feel the connections of that tongue and how it connects to um, the African continent, through encountering more languages from there. So it's beautiful for me to hold on to those moments, not hold on to them as in, oh, this is like the next level, but to understand that that moment is a very beautiful indicator of you breaking a certain barrier or receiving a certain thing, whether it be a gift or just a certain piece of knowledge. and then later on cherishing it in your heart and in your soul space, not holding on to it, but cherishing it. And then slowly, when you journey and become who you need to be, those things will return. That memory will return. And perhaps it'll return by you going to a place or encountering someone who speaks that language, and you chanting together, etc., and then awakening that, or awakening that ancestor within you, or that memory within you. Sound just calls the memory. So all of the indigenous instruments that I encounter and I play, for me, are just, as much as they are voices and sing, they are also memories that call on the memories within other people. And it's important for us to encounter the importance of encountering sound and being encountered by sound and vibration, is that it allows for us to remember more. And I believe that what my work does is it tries to move around so that people can encounter more sound, so that they can remember on their own. And so that's what I can say about that. It's just, for me, it's connected to the living memory of sound, and it's for us to encounter people that are able to share those memories with us, to say that this is what this means, perhaps, or to guide us so that we can remember for ourselves, and so that we can connect to that memory more. And because when we encounter that memory, it becomes the present, and so becomes the future, is what I was saying about maybe not linear time. It's like encountering a vision. You encountered in the present from maybe things from the past, but then it becomes the future. It has the potential. So yeah, it's a beautiful thing. And some of the sounds on that's why I shared it as the beginning, because it's still prevalent to me, that the whole song book and audio book is a visual and physical and metaphysical journey through that umbilical cord, and going through those connections of umnombo, which is just how umnombo is our spiritual umbilical cord, our ancestral umbilical cord that links all of us, who where we're from, and where our parents and their parents, and then we understand that we're all part of the same umbilical cord as well, the same song umbilical cord. And very important uh, words like chants, but words that unlock these things, these words that I'm saying, umnombo, camako, etc., these open up a different paradigm in the body. When you speak them, they vibrate in the body and open up the channels. And so definitely, definitely really beautiful and important. And some those texts, that I've sent, also dig into that.
Tukozani, I don't even have anything to add on what he just said. I just want to shake my shakeray in agreement. Thank you so much for sharing. I hope you are enjoying this podcast episode so far. I want to close out this session with two more things. When I asked Nkosenathi what he has channeled or what he has divined through sound, he sent me a channeling and a writing that he wrote, and I want to share that message with you. It's been a long journey. If you find and encounter Uchamatu, which is another word for God, in a bee, serpent, cloud, leaf, water, wind, vision, or dream, know that you are being held by an internal hand and you are not lost. Do not seek guidance outside of faith and your inner self, for if you are weak, then there are many ways to be misled. Go to the ocean, speak an old language there. Go to a green forest next to an old tree. Close your eyes, vibrate, and pray. Let your dreams guide you to your guides when you find them. Let them uncover the divinity and balance in the natural world. Be still. Then and know that in all creation there is sound and vibration, therefore frequency, and thus potential for warmth and light. Be still and hear God. Well, it took so much, but I know now my music is designed to be designed by the Almighty to heal. Now I devote myself once more to learning about the natural plants, energies, and pathways to unlock the way back to God. My ancestors' dreams, feelings, umbulini, and all just natural mechanisms built by Ukamatu, a beautiful word for God, to guide me when my strength is not enough. He thanks his elder, a rare and high healer, guide, and Lasiba player, who advised you have all your spiritual gifts actualized, but you must revere your gift of sound and healing, for it is divine, and so nurture it. Ensure those around you respect it, so that you may eventually give what you have to someone else. You then confirm exactly what I dreamt of, and confirm that under this mountain in Morija, where there is Unduna, I will be guided by you to understand the herbs so that I can truly walk in my path. I give thanks and humbly appreciate all practitioners of love and light on our continent. You are few, but you are many. Now I am home. With a small amount of understanding and wisdom to begin and continue my path of vibrational giving and healing. Really looking forward to being surprised by walking in faith, bearing witness to real effects of healing with my gift. I will not deny what I seek waking nor dreaming. I will not hide it. I will not flaunt it, and will nurture it, share it. For if it is God's to me, then it is from me to you as well. No one owns sound. Tokozani. I love that, and we can talk about sound, but it is truly something that is meant to be experienced. And one of the things that Nkosenathi mentioned was the sound book, this EP that he has on SoundCloud and on Bandcamp, which you can contribute and download. But I was listening to the tracks and I was deciding, well, what sound journey would I like to share with you all? And I was thinking about these two tracks, and then I was like, wait a minute, let me listen to this. And as I listened, I was like, no, this is the one. And so I asked them the name, like, tell us a little bit about the name of this track and what it means.
Tamaku. So Mukwerera, in brackets Mntana, is Mukwerera is the ceremony of calling the rain in Zimbabwe, and Mntana is the prayer. So these are about a prayer, saying prayer to God and to the Almighty, asking for cleansing and healing rain, asking for saving, describing when the rain does come and what that symbolic feels like in sound.
So to me, it was the perfect meaning of a song, calling upon the rain, especially because I'm working towards this long-term project of contributing to a water restoration project in Burkina Faso, in my father's village, through the amazing designs that I created in the Zulu Moon Market. But I just thought that it would be a beautiful intention to, listen to this sound and set the intention for calling on rain and water in the spaces in this world, on the lands of our ancestors that are truly needing it. And I'm just so grateful. I want to end this episode with letting you have your own sound journey with his music. Please feel free to connect with Nkosenathi on Instagram. I've added his handle in the show notes and the links to his beautiful sonic vibrations and ancestral indigenous sounds, send him a message. Let him know. Leave him a comment. Let him know what his words meant to you, the light bulbs that went on in your mind, and maybe even the experience that you had or the reflections that you had when listening to his music. Thank you so much, Booty, for sharing and connecting in this way. Thank you to you all for listening, sending you my love. Enjoy the vibrations.
Wakali